Hello, learners. Today we're looking at economic geography, as I'm going to highlight it down here. And we're looking at the section contribution of tertiary activities to the South African economy. Okay. And I'm going to look at the 2021 guideline. I'll move my head first. We're going to look at definition of tertiary activities, examples of tertiary activities, the role of trade, local and international, in economic development, definition of balance of trade and trade agreements, role of transport, public and private in economic development, and an interpretation of a few graphs and tables in tertiary activities. Okay. Now let's get going. Of course, we start off with the definition of a tertiary activity. Okay. And they are service-based activities. Okay. A point to note about it is that they do not have operations involving primary and secondary activities. Primary activities involve extracting raw materials from the earth, farming, etc. But they contribute to the growth of primary and secondary activities. I think I like the word growth. All right. So what they do is, if the demand in the tertiary activity is needed, then it's going to encourage the primary and secondary activity. If shops need food to sell, then obviously there'll be more farming and there'll be more secondary activities in terms of processing of food. Okay, so it does impact on the primary and secondary activities also. Okay, a point to note. Some examples of tertiary activities, it include your transport. Can you see it here? Right, these trucks transporting the goods. Okay, and networking, commerce, which includes all these things, businesses, etc., that come in commerce, health, education, administration, okay, recreation, businesses like shops selling stuff. So all these things actually are examples of tertiary. Your education, your school may be known as a secondary school, but it's a service that's offered. A university is a service that's offered. So it's all about offering services to people. Transport, the road is a service. You understand? Transport, these trucks offer a service to transport the goods. So we need to get in, and the emphasis is on services when looking at tertiary activities. Then we also, according to the guideline, is going to look at trade. And once again, I always like to define the concept because it gives us a better understanding, okay, of the other related issues to trade. So let's look at any concept for that matter. Let's look at what is trade. It is the exchange of goods, money, services, and I'm going to move my head again, between countries and regions. So trade does not only have to happen between countries, like South Africa trading with China. It can happen within the country, okay, within the provinces. It can happen within a region, like SADC. You understand, we trade with Namibia, Zimbabwe. Okay, so it can happen anywhere. It can be on a smaller scale and a larger scale. Okay, as I go through this, you will realize that. So trade, another point to note, is a basic economic concept involving buying and selling of goods and services. So you sell goods. If I'm selling cars, that's a good. Services, okay, transporting of those goods is a service. I am lecturing, I'm offering a service, okay. I am in healthcare, I'm offering a service, okay. I'm actually selling the service to a certain extent, yet I'm doing good for people. You understand, in terms of healthcare, but I get paid for it. Okay. With compensation, that's the thing. Paid by the buyer, or paid by the buyer to a seller. Okay. So generally, the exchange of goods and services between parties. Just putting the definition in different ways to get a better understanding of trade. Okay. You can see here, trade, buy or sell. You can see the ships taking things to another country. Okay. It's one country selling to another. Trade. Okay. Right. Let's go further. Let's look at what's local trade. I know I'm going in a little more depth, okay, but it's necessary. I always believe a little depth is necessary to get a better understanding. Okay, let's look at local trade. Also, you may find it's referred to as domestic trade because it's within the country. Let's look at the definition. Okay, occurs when businesses conducted inside the country's borders, within the country, when things are sold or bought within South Africa, that is local domestic trade. And what does it mean then? The exchange of goods and services are only made within the geographical boundaries of the country, domestic. The seller and buyer of goods are from the same country, okay? It does not impact heavily on the value of the national currency. Where the national currency gets more is when you have investments or sort of exports, okay, to other countries, etc. That impacts far more, okay? Because that's bringing in foreign currency into your country. All right, examples of local trade. Let's see what's local trade. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping again here. My fingers are too itchy, so therefore it's moving. Examples of local trade. In local trade, you get wholesale trade. Now, what is that? It involves buying of large quantities from producers or manufacturing and selling lots to retailers for resale to consumers. All right? So here, these big places, wholesalers or whatever, like Macro. Macro is found here. It's large. Can you see? Large storage, large amounts here. They buy it from the factories or the manufacturers, and then they sell it out to the people. You understand? So it's actually, they can also not just sell to the people, but they sell to smaller businesses, the retailers as such. You know, Macro can sell to both ways. That is why I think you need a Macro card to show some sort of business. Okay, you can't just buy from there like that. All right, so they sell to other smaller businesses also. So the wholesaler is a link between the manufacturer and the retailer. They then sell to smaller businesses. They buy from the manufacturers and they sell to other smaller businesses, and as I say nowadays, to people also. Okay, then we get retail trade. These are the retailers. I'm talking generally now. Okay, they are the retailers who buy from the wholesalers. Okay, now it involves buying smaller lots from wholesalers and selling in small quantities to the consumer for personal use. Okay, like a supermarket. They buy from the wholesalers, all right? And then they sell it to the person, okay, down here, who came shopping for her family. Her family eats quite a lot in that basket. I wish I was part of her family. Okay, so that's what actually happens here for personal use. The retailer is the last link in the chain of distribution, okay, where then it's sold to the people and the people consume, all right? He establishes, I shouldn't be saying he or she establishes a link between wholesalers and the consumers. So let's put this in perspective. You have the wholesalers who buy from the manufacturers, the factories, etc., and they supply the retailers. It's trade. The retailers then form the link between the wholesalers and the personal use, okay? Whereas the wholesalers form the link between the producers, like the industries, and the retailers. Okay, so you got that retail trade. There are different types of retailers, small as well as large. You get supermarkets, etc., that are huge hypermarkets that sell to the people. And then you can get a small store, which is your general shops or your hawkers, who have smaller quantities and sell to the immediate market, the niche market that demand it in the areas. Okay, like your general shops, your some of us call it in slang, the corner shop or something of that sort. Okay, where you go buy your stuff in small quantities, your bread, your milk, okay, maybe some fruit, some vegetables. Okay, so that's your local trade. The role of local trade in economic development, okay, it does create employment as normal, okay, because you get people trading, etc. Okay, movement of goods, so it does. Again, many people employed results in larger market for goods. Okay, so it does improve economic development, more goods, more production. It does develop infrastructure, okay, because you're building wholesalers, smaller shops, chain stores. Okay, therefore infrastructure has to be built, whether it's the building itself, additional power supply or power lines, more transport routes. So all that creates accessibility, which is a good thing. You understand? So it promotes accessibility of goods to the market, both ways, infrastructure wise, okay, and proximity wise, okay, that it's nearer to the customer in terms of your retail stores, etc., which then brings in more buying in the area. Okay, your smaller stores are right there, your more stores like we spoke about, your hawkers, etc., okay, your general shop is near to the people, okay, and goods are sold there. So it plays an important role in terms of development also, and development within the country. Okay, international trade. All right, what is it? Definition first: exchange of goods and services among countries across national borders. Now you're not dealing within the country, you're dealing with other countries, selling on a large scale, bringing in South Africa, bringing in the foreign currency, the dollars that coming in. And when you convert dollars, if you make $1 million, convert it, I don't know what's the currency at the moment, between 14 to 15 rand to a dollar. So each time you're bringing in $1 million, you're bringing 14 to 15 million rand, okay, which is a lot of money into the country. So most countries Such trade represents a significant share of the gross domestic product. It's money coming into the country. It's not money moving in the country. Okay, it's money coming in because it's international trade. Of course, it will depend on imports and exports. Okay, those two, when you're buying from other countries, your money's going more out. When you're selling to other countries, exports, you understand, you're getting more money coming in. So this is the bug I always say that will create a massive boost to your gross domestic product, the goods and services, you understand, that are offered in a country, etc. It brings in money, you understand, okay, that's produced by people, okay, within the country rather. You know my one lesson on GDP, so I don't want to repeat the whole lesson again, okay. Examples of international trade: export trade. That's one. When a trader from the home country sells goods to a trader located in another country, this is export trade. It's good. Export trade is good. For example, a trader from South Africa sells his goods to a trader located in India. Where is the money coming? It's coming to South Africa. So the more we export, the better for us. You understand? Because more money is coming in. Okay? So it's a good thing. And that is why you see bulk, especially when it's, as I mentioned, in those dollars, etc. Then importing. Oh, I wanted to use that. There's our South African bringing the goods. There's our other country paying the money. Okay. Import trade is when a trader in the home country obtains or purchases goods from another trader located in another country. This is import trade. Not so good. It does bring in more goods, etc., but not so good because we are buying instead of selling. Example, a trader from South Africa purchases goods from a trader located in China. China is getting our money. You understand? Right? But it's necessary with certain goods. Sometimes these goods are cheaper. It becomes cheaper to the market. So the market benefits. So there's various things as we will discuss in this lesson as we go through. Okay, then you get Entrepot Trade. Yeah, when goods are imported from one country and then re-exported after doing some processing. And this is called Interport Trade. All right, it's international trade also. Okay, it's also called re-export. Learners, I'll talk a little more with the example of processed imported goods. All right, let's take an example to make sense of this. A South African trader purchases some raw material or spare parts from Japan. Okay, so he's importing it and then assembles it. Example, converts it into finished goods and re-exports it to an American trader. Let's just take this example. We buy parts from Japan, let's say car parts. All right, we take the car parts, we assemble and make a car and then sell it to another country. So it benefits people in the sense that, let's say Japan will benefit selling us the car parts. We also benefit because we process and we make the car and then sell it to another country, okay, at a better price. Okay, so sometimes imports are not bad. Depends what we do with it. Like in this case, Interport Trade is good because we're getting it from somewhere else. We're We're processing it and then selling it at a better price. Like this. Can you see the cargo in this area is coming in to this country by a ship, whatever, and then it gets processed, labeled, repacked, etc., restuffing, and then gets shipped out again. Okay, that's Interport trade, a form of international trade. So we did different trades, and it's significant that we understand that. Okay, the role of international trade in development. All right, what does it play now? International trade. Okay, and how does it help economic? It boosts the economy as goods can be sourced from other countries at cheaper production costs. So it can boost. An import does not necessarily be bad. All right, it gets it at cheaper production. Some things are cheaper to produce in another country like China, all right, than to even produce it in South Africa. So the production costs are less. It attracts foreign investment and improves international relations. Okay, if you are building up international trade, people see the quality, they come and invest in your country, all right, because they want part of the pie. You understand, everything is based on capital and profits and benefits. So they come and invest. Okay, they see trade happening and the quality of trade, etc. That is brilliant for them. They want to invest. Also, by trading with other countries, you build better relationships, which helps in terms of stability, in terms of deals with other countries, trade agreements, which I'll talk about later, all right, so that you get benefits. They waiver tariffs, which are charged on goods. Sometimes you don't just get the goods straight. There's a certain tariff, a loading placed on it. You pay a little extra on the good, you understand? And they do these things also to actually sell goods and to limit people from their countries also buying, or it makes it difficult because the tariff makes it more expensive so that they benefit in terms of their development. You understand? So all these things now get improved. You get better costs, better relationships, you get priority in terms of items. They may favor you more before they favor anybody else. They charge you cheaper rates instead of another country. So all these things play a huge benefit in economic development. All right. Also, surplus produce can be exported instead of being wasted. You got an extra, you produced extra. You understand, there's extra fruit. Okay, that's in the country. It's more than what the local population needs. So it's going to get wasted. But if you export it to another country, you're getting foreign exchange coming in. All right. Provides resources in a country which is not available. You must remember places, I'm going to use Japan as an example. Iron ore and iron and steel is not really readily available in Japan. So what it does allow, they are huge car manufacturers, etc. So they buy the iron and steel from other countries, and that's possible through import trade, which is international trade. Okay, whenever a country lacks certain resources, they can buy it from another country and they can produce it, okay, and then sell it at a much higher price. Imagine you buying 1 million tons worth of iron and steel, okay, which is not available in your country, and you make cars or car parts and sell it back for $25 million. You understand? You're making a huge profit, and that's possible through international trade. And then consumers can gain access to a greater variety of goods. They're not stuck with just goods produced in the country, but the variety. And imagine how popular that would be, increase the market, okay, and therefore create development. More exports increase production, resulting in an increase in employment and money made. The more you export to other countries, then obviously you have to produce more. And if you produce more, there'll be more jobs, there'll be more infrastructure, it'll strengthen the economy, and there'll be more taxes. Okay, so export is excellent as a form of international trade and economic development. More people employed results in a larger market for goods. Okay, more exporting, more people employed, larger market, especially a local market. You understand, the success of many countries also depends on selling locally. Okay, and that's possible by exporting. Okay, because more people employed, more money. Okay, and therefore they'll buy locally. And imagine if you open up a business or whatever like that, all right, and you selling to the local people, and you already made a profit locally. When you go internationally, you are very competitive because you already made a profit. You can lower your prices to compete with other people. When you don't make a profit, you understand, you're still at owing, you understand, all the loans. It's harder for you to compete on the international market. Okay. Promotes development of infrastructure, obviously, as we discussed it all through this. Okay, there's more international trade, more exports, all right, more goods, then your production will increase, more factories, more power lines, more communication networks, improvement in transport routes. All this is creating accessibility, which is important for economic development. Other concepts, balance of trade, that we would use here. This also plays an important part in determining how successful we are and how economically viable we are and the profits we make, etc. So balance of trade is the difference between the value of the country's exports and the value of the country's imports. What we sell to other countries and what we buy for a given period of time. It can be for a year, etc. Okay, so it works out. If we sold R1 million of goods, I'm just using a simple example, to another country, and we bought 500,000, we made 500,000 Rand profit, which is good. You understand? So it works out the balance of trade, you know, and to determine whether we're in a good position or a bad position. Okay, let's look at this a little further. A positive balance of trade is when the value of exports exceeds the value of imports, means we have a trade surplus, means we have money in our pocket. Let's take a bigger figure. 1 million is too small. We sold to other countries for R1 billion or 2 billion Rand. Let's put it that way. And we bought from other countries for R1 billion Rand. That means we have a trade surplus of 1 billion Rand, which is brilliant. We can use in our country because we sold more than we bought from other countries. You can look at this graph. This red line shows you exports. This blue line shows you imports. So in this case, this country sold far more to other countries than bought from other countries. And can you see the amount being made? You understand? In millions of Rand, 200, and when it got higher, it made 200 million, 150 million. I'm just giving you examples. All right, so it was a positive balance. It's good. Money, more money coming into the country than leaving the country. Okay, let's look at a negative trade balance. And this is the opposite. It occurs when a country's imports exceed its exports for a given period of time, or maybe a year, etc. This is a trade deficit. Little diagram here showing you more buying and less selling. Okay, so more money is leaving the country than money coming into the country. Trade deficit, not that good or not good. Okay, Another concept, according to guideline, is trade agreements. Can you see all these concepts before I go back to trade agreements? Determines the economic power of a country, all right? Beautiful examples like China. China is an export industry. You would have done that in grade 11, where it exports goods. It's export-led economy, and they sell to the whole world, and they buy very little, they import very little, all right? And it's become a superpower, economic power, because of the money coming in. You understand? And it's now the second largest economy in the world, China, all right? So that affects economic development. Let's get on to trade agreements. It's also known as a trade pact. A deal, an agreement is a pact. Is wide-ranging taxes, tariffs, trade treaties that often include investment guarantees. It exists between two or more countries, agree on terms that help them trade with each other. You understand? They have trade agreements. They reduce the taxes. There's low tariffs on goods, extra charges on goods. There's trade treaties that we'll prioritize our trade with you first than any other country. We haven't even have trade blocks like the EU who trade with one another. You understand? Those different countries. They're friendlier, easy access to the countries. All right? Investment guarantees that we will invest in your country, given priority. So imagine the advantage of that. You understand? It helps them to trade with one another, and they're assured of businesses, okay? Business that's coming in, investment that's coming in. Oh, I have a shortage of that raw material. I will buy it from you because you have it. You understand? But you will buy this from me. We make agreements. So I will produce the good and I'll sell it back to you. So relationships become stronger between those countries. You understand? And they get things cheaper from one another. They prioritize the other country first before they prioritize other countries. So trade agreements are of extreme importance. You understand? BRICS, where we have a more familiar or more profitable and better relations with countries like China and India and Russia, you understand, and Brazil, can, if it develops further, can play a very important part for us because we will get priority from those countries. You understand? And you can see it from this little map that we have here, rough map. You can see that have the most trade agreements. You look at around here, this part of Europe, etc., has High Britain, okay, the United States, relatively high, okay, Australia, and many of these countries have strong economies, very strong economies. You understand? China, India. All right, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be developed countries. The economies in terms of output, you understand, GDP is huge, okay, because of certain trade relationships that they have. Okay, so it does play a big part in terms of development and economic power of a country. All right, one more thing comes in. And of course, it's part of the tertiary sector. Trade is the tertiary sector, and transport is the tertiary sector. So our guideline talks about the role of transport, public and private, in economic development. And again, I know it's simple, but it's nice to define what's transport. And when we look at it here, transport is to take or carry people or goods from one place to another by means of vehicles, aircraft, ship. So it's carrying of goods and people, okay, that's going through. All right, so we got that. Then we get public transport. They are buses, trains, and other form of transport that are available to public, charge set fees that you need. You understand that you pay when you go into a public bus, all right? And they run generally, not always, our taxis, etc., may change their routes on fixed routes. Okay, you'll go through here, etc. So it's open to everybody. You pay your fee, you jump into a bus, you jump into a train. You understand, it takes you from one point to another. That's where you want to go. And then we have private transport. And this is the personal or individual use of transportation, which are not available for use by the general public. Okay, so that is when your family goes on a trip, your father or mother, or you drive the car, all right, it's for personal use. Okay, now look at here, one of the big types of public transport in South Africa is the taxis. That's public. We have buses also. And there's the cars that's traveling, carrying private passengers. I know your family has the Ferrari. I'm just going to use things that I'm used to, these type of cars. Okay, so that's private transport. The role of transport now for economic development. Okay, one thing it does is it encourages economic growth, because better transport, you've got a harbor, you've got shipping, you've got trucks, you've got all these things, meaning that you have good road networks or sea travel or good airport facilities. It promises economic growth because it creates accessibility. All right, it's easier to move goods around at a faster pace. The goods are sent without damage. Okay, it's effective. It promotes growth because goods are being distributed. You want raw materials, it comes in quicker and safer. You can produce. So it does involve economic growth. Therefore, governments need to invest in logistic infrastructure, determining routes and providing infrastructure, you understand, such as roads, airports, okay, railways, airports, ports. We need to build. And that's what our government is doing in many cases, because of IDZs, near harbors, developing the facilities. And when you develop, like you would have come across the Saldanha Bay IDZ, all right, it's developed. What does it do? It brings in more investors. It brings greater production. You understand? Because of the harbor being developed in that area. Spatial development initiatives that you would have dealt with. You understand? The West Coast, SDI, there's spatial development, transport networks, etc., that create accessibility and promotes an area and promotes business. Okay. It allows for easier movement of labor from households to firms, goods, services between firms, and from firms to household. Transportation is important. Imagine you had one road leading to our CBD, which handles a lot of businesses. Imagine the traffic congestion. Okay, workers reaching late or not reaching at all. The frustration, which will reduce the productivity of the workers, that will definitely affect economic development. Imagine you waiting for goods or raw materials and you wait 2 days. It cuts down productivity. Okay, so it goes good. Workers leave quick, goods transported quickly, less traffic congestion. All right, movement is easier, less frustration, more productive in the economic development. Transport infrastructure, provision of transport operations make a significant contribution to the GDP. The costs involved, you said, and the outcome in terms of payments, etc., transporting goods is cost. There's cost involved. And each time those costs involved, you understand, comes back to the GDP also of the country. Okay, so it does contribute to the GDP. Effective transport networks promotes investment. If people want to invest, whether it's international investment, they look at the transport networks because they also want to look at accessibility to the market. They want to produce for the local people also, that goods can be sent out quick, raw materials can come in quick. They also want to, these investors want to come to the country so that they can sell to other countries. Proper port facilities that will allow them for goods to go out quickly. Can you see the economic development from that? Transport development and maintenance promotes employment. You're building more transport routes. You understand? You maintaining transport routes creates employment. And employment is an economic factor because it brings economic development, bigger markets, more taxes, all right, coming from people who are employed. The quality of transport links can affect relative competitiveness of one area over another area. It's similar to the point I spoke about in terms of bringing in investment. It's also competitiveness. The better transport infrastructure you have, the more investors you'll draw, the quicker you'll be sending out goods because they become more accessible. The more money you will make, the more investors you will get. So you compete better than a country or a region which has poor transport networks. You understand? Because accessibility is not that good. All right. Availability of a variety modes of transport improves trade. Example, ships are cheaper for transporting goods. If you are landlocked, all right, you're at a disadvantage. Like certain countries in Africa are landlocked, Botswana, etc. And therefore they have to go through other countries to get to the ship transport or sea transport because they don't have harbors. So the greater variety of transport networks will help with transportation of goods, etc. Your costs are less. Imagine those countries that are landlocked, they'll have to pay the additional transport and also go to other countries, which could be a costly process, making the product more expensive. Okay, so there's so many things that are important about the role of transport in economic development. I'm going to look at some graphs, okay? And when we look at this graph, it shows South Africa's major export destinations. It was a graph taken in 2018. And we're not looking in that bad shape, eh? We can ask you, which country was the most sent to? Right, you can see we're quite big with China, all right, 9.2% to China, which is good. 7.5% to Germany, okay, 6.7% to the United States. These are the major. So we can see 5% to the United Kingdom, Japan, 4.8%. So we have quite a variety of large markets that we export to. Okay, India, all right. We can see also the 5% there. Okay, Japan was 4.8, Botswana 4.3, lovely, right? Because they're close to us. Okay, cheaper transport costs, closer proximity. Okay, just looking at some of the graphs here. And it's also helping us analyze the graph. Let's look at this, imports, exports. And when we look at imports, who we buy from, Germany, we got a few countries here, and just imagine this was an overall import-export. I took it and I totaled. And I noticed there was more exports than imports. Which is a good thing or bad thing? If it was for a year and it involved all countries, for example, it's actually a good thing because we are selling more than we are buying, which gives us a trade, you understand, a good trade balance, all right, a trade surplus, not a trade deficit, because we got more exports than that. All right, we can see some of our largest amounts, all right, are made from the United Kingdom. Okay, big amount. All right, we can see things like India, large. Okay, United States, Japan, Germany, making huge amounts in millions of rands. Okay, so that thing we can do in this sort of thing is compare the imports to the exports, and we have a trade surplus, a positive balance of trade. All right, let's look at this one in terms of exports. And you say, why have I got this here? There's some problems here. We take precious minerals, 16.68%. We take our vegetables, all right? Our wood, pulp, paper. We take our mineral products, okay? So more processing of goods will be better. If we just sell our precious metals and 16.68, we sell it straight, we sell mineral products, if we just make iron and steel and sell it, you understand? We get a certain amount of money because we processed it. But what about making the full product in the country? Okay, if we make the full product in the country, we sell it for a much higher price. As I say, imagine us selling iron and steel to Japan, R1 million worth, you understand? And they sell us cars back made from the same iron and steel for 25 million. All right, we only sold R1 million worth of iron and steel. They sold us 25 million rand worth of cars made from the iron and steel. So processing of goods needs to be done, all right, in terms of getting a better balance of trade, because we get more value from processing goods. I know the South African policy now is to produce, or has been for many years, is to produce more than just selling raw materials. You understand? Or semi-processed goods, okay? Because we get far less than we get when we sell finished products to other countries, like machinery that's here, like aircraft vessels. You understand? That's better. Prepared foodstuffs that's indicated on this little resource that I have in front of me here. So we can ask you about the problem. If there's more processed goods, more unprocessed goods being exported, which is better, why, etc. You understand? Because that's also trade. We don't just look at export, import, but what is being exported and what is being imported. You understand? Or is processed goods being exported or raw materials being exported? Processed goods better than raw materials. Okay, so I hope you got a better understanding of tertiary activities and the specifics prescribed in the 2021 exam guideline. All the best, learners. Goodbye.